This is the first Tuesday of the month Waupaca City Council meeting.
Our regular scheduled City Council meeting today is Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018. It is 6 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. And as always, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You okay, Mr. Hart? Okay, good. Heard a little groaning getting up, so I was wondering. Oh, that was you? Sorry. I can't believe you took it for him. Sandy, read the clerk's open meeting statement for me.
This meeting and all other meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And roll call, please.
Brian Smith.
Here.
Steve Hackett.
Here.
Lori Chestnut.
Here.
Paul Hagan.
Here.
Alan Keeland.
Here.
Scott Perchatsky.
Here.
Dave Peterson.
Here.
Paul Mayo.
Here.
Chuck Whitman.
Here.
Mary Fair.
Here.
And Eric Olson.
Here.
10 present. We have a quorum.
Next is the consent agenda. These are items that we'll vote on with one motion, and unless there's somebody on the council or staff that would like to see any of these items moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda, where we would vote on those individually. If there is no changes, then we'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as printed.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Hackett, second by Keelan, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. Regular agenda, you have that in front of you. Sandy tells me that there's no additional handouts. I know you're going to get one for the, or you already got one for the committee of the whole, but that's a whole separate meeting. So again, we'd be just looking for a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Chestnut, that we approve the regular agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Non-agenda items, we have a thank you note from the Foundations for Living. You can find that on page 80 in your packet. That's just for informational purposes only. And then Sandy tells us that we need to change our November 6th City Council meeting because that's election night. So our ordinance says that we need to move it to the next day after, which would be Wednesday, November 7th, 2018. I guess we're looking for a motion to approve that? Okay. So we need a motion to approve. Motion by Peterson.
Second.
Second by Chestnut, that we approve the change in the City Council meeting from Tuesday, November 6th to Wednesday, November 7th. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Next is our public input. This is for non-agenda items. If we have anybody on the council or staff or in the audience that would like to speak to us on a non-agenda item, please step up to the podium, give your name and address, and limit your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Anybody? Yes, Lori?
I see that we have folks here from the Historical Society.
Yeah.
And I would like to say to all of you how this group has really, really grown. In the years that I've been on since I returned, and Tracy has come on board, amazing things have been happening, and it's just wonderful to see so much dedication to what has been and what is being kept. So I'd just like you all to know that I really enjoy being on that committee. So thank you.
Great. Laurie, thank you. And I'm sure they thank you for that recognition. Okay, under any other public input? Let's go on to new business then. We have license report number 1420, which is our reserve Class B liquor license, and we're looking at giving this to 3H Brew LLC, which is our H.H. Hinder Brewing Company, the brewery that's going to open up on Churchill Street. And Brennan, you have a little bit more information on that too.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. This, the memo or the memorandum of understanding starts on page 84. We were approached, the city was, by Mike Strike, who is in attendance this evening, to discuss the project regarding when this project was first conceived. The liquor licenses in Wisconsin are pretty, I won't say difficult to understand, but there was hopefully an understanding when the project was first conceived, the ability to sell wine on the property. Unfortunately, as we went through the process and Mike dug deeper in with the state, since I believe it's 2009 or 2012, the state does not allow breweries to sell wine anymore. In order to have a wine license, they have to have 50% of their sales in food. The city does have one reserve liquor license available within the city, and has been kind of held for a couple years. And the owners approached the city about the possibility of acquiring that license for the ability to serve wine at their brewery, but they also have purchased the building next door, which used to be or is currently the maintenance facility for the school district. They will be vacating that facility next year after the bus garage vacates their facility out to the industrial park for Go Right Way. And the long-term vision or goal for that property is to create an event space for the area. And working with Kathy and Barb in the clerk's office regarding the different types of licenses that are available, we came across another opportunity here that if in the future we did have another restaurant that wanted to come into town and needed the reserve liquor license, there is the ability for the city to have an above quota Class B liquor license. And there's certain parameters to that, and they've outlined those within the memorandum of understanding. But in order to qualify for an above quota Class B liquor license, they would need to be a full-service restaurant with at least 300 interior permanent seats, a hotel with at least 50 rooms in either a 150-seat restaurant or a 400-person banquet room, or an opera house. The memorandum of understanding outlines basically that we will grant the reserve liquor license to Mike and H.H. Hinder Brewing for up to 3 years, and that 3 years is for them to get their other project underway. If in the event that we do have a restaurant that comes in within that 3-year period, we would work with Mike Strike and H.H. Hinder to actually transfer that license to the restaurant, because most likely to have a restaurant to come into Waupaca that has 300 seating would be a challenge or difficult to do. And then at that time, we would grant an above quota license to H.H. Hinder because of their facility that they'll have next door. Any questions?
I do have a question. I want to clarify a couple of things, and that's the third from the last bullet point about their surrendering the Class B liquor license in the event that we get an application from another facility. Is it an immediate surrender, and is there any restitution of the $10,500?
No, it would not be an immediate. It would basically be at the same meeting that most likely we would surrender the license to the restaurant that would come into town, and then we would grant an above liquor license to H.H. Hinder Brewery. But no, they would still need to pay the $10,000.
The new restaurant would also have to pay
Yes.
the $10,500.
Okay, so it would be an immediate surrender, and this could happen just upon application for the license, as I understand it, not granting of it.
Right. Is once that application goes through, they would have to give us their license back so that we could, once we have the application, put that new application through. Is that what you're looking at?
Well, I'm just questioning the fairness of it, I guess. I mean, it could happen a week after they get the license. Another applicant comes in, applies for it. And are they out 10,500 then?
Right.
And what protection do they have?
They have nothing with the 10,500. That 10,000, they don't get refunded for having that license. That's the same thing with the reserve, the over the quota license. We could have it so that that's also 10,500.
Then they would pay that again?
No, we would
Just transfer that?
just transfer the 10,500.
Any other questions?
I'd move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mayo, second by Whitman, that we approve of license report number 1420, which is a Class B intoxicated liquor license to 3H Brew LLC, and at 804 Churchill Street. Brandon Altman is the agent, liquor agent for that. And then also the memorandum of understanding between the city of Waupaca and 3H Brew LLC. Any further discussion? Sandy, call the roll.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Chuck Whitman,
Aye.
and Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
All right,
You're working with all these.
thank you. Next, we have Brennan, it looks like this is you also. This is for the detention basin out in, by the airport.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This item starts on page 86 of the packet. The date is incorrect. I did write this after what it does say August 20th, 2018. About a month and a half ago, the council approved the base bid contract for the construction of the dry basin out in the regional detention, or out in the Eco Park for the regional detention basin. And as I had explained back in August, unfortunately, because of FAA and BOA requirements, the desire for a wet pond had to be converted to a dry pond because of requirements for natural habitat and animals within and around the area. We have a developer's agreement with Premier Development that states that any of the dirt that was coming out of the pond would be granted to them as part of their fill for the site. And after we had to make the change to the dry pond, it ended up to being that they were going to be about 8 to 10,000 cubic yards short of fill for their site, for their buildings and the project in and around the area. That would be a cost of about $86,000 of additional costs that they would have to incur by having to truck in dirt from Plover. They approached the city about the possibility of awarding the base bid or the alternate bid that was part of the original project scope, and that base bid or alternate bid is for the full construction of the pond. So what they are offering to provide to the city is basically an advancement of $86,000. The alternate bid cost is $116,755.75. So they are seeking to advance the city $86,000, basically the cost that they would be utilizing to truck the dirt in. The additional cost to the city, to the tax increment district number 8, would be about just under $31,000. And they would be seeking that they recoup that over a 5-year period, which we would amend their developers agreement to pay them back on a yearly payment of about $17,500. This, by moving forward the alternate bid this evening, it does provide for construction efficiencies for the pond and the overall design or construction of the pond. It would actually be less cost now, or instead of the future where we would have to rebid the project back out. And from an assessment standpoint, it does make our life a lot easier assessing out 100% of the project in lieu of what was previously identified as about 65% of the pond that we awarded back in August. So this evening, we're looking to award the alternate bid to R&R Wash Construction at a cost of Construction costs of $116,755.75, with a total project cost not to exceed $125,000, and that's included in a small contingency of 7%.
Okay,
This would still be a dry, excuse me.
let's go ahead. Go ahead.
This would still be a dry pond?
That is correct. Yep.
Go ahead.
So what's the difference here? I
If-
need a little more explanation.
Yep.
Are
If-
they getting the fill from this pond? Is it
Correct.
getting bigger?
Yes. So if you look at the map that's on page 87, what's outlined in yellow was what was previously approved.
Okay.
That was estimated about 65% of the total pond construction for all the area that we were trying to service. The area outlined in green would be what would be the additional construction and where they're going to get their fill of 8 to 10,000 cubic yards.
Okay. And that meets specs with the BO and.
Yep, everything is
irrigation
a dry basin out there, correct?
Okay.
So it drains within 48 hours, to not require us to have to put in any type of wire grid system or bird balls or anything else.
Okay. We want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Hackett, that we approve of the alternate bid number 1 for the regional detention basin designed by R&R Wash at a cost not to exceed $116,755.75. Total project cost not to exceed $125, and that includes a contingency of about 7% in there. Discussion? Sandy, call the roll.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Scott Prochatsky,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
and Chuck Whitman.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Brennan, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have approve the new job description for the circulation manager, adult service librarian. Peg?
Thank you, Mayor Smith. Within the last couple of years, we've had a lot of changes in staff in terms of where we're concentrating our efforts. And we used to have a reference librarian who was also teen services librarian. And we changed that position to really service teens full-time, and it's been a really good move. We're creating a great safe space for teens with a caring adult in that space. But it does leave us with only 2 full-time members, staff members in the adult department. And with the kinds of services that we want to provide, it does leave us with fewer staff to do that. So we're looking at promoting a part-time person to a full-time position, and they will retain their current duties as well as taking on circulation management. Our assistant director is also circulation management and IT director, and it becomes a very big job with the more computers and technology that we have. It leaves our assistant director with very little time to actually do that circulation management. So we're looking at a new position created from a part-time position. It will allow us to provide 12 additional full-time hours to serving adults in our community. And I'm looking for approval. The library board has approved this position.
Okay. Discussion, motion?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Chestnut, second by Mayo, that we approve of placement of a new position, I'm sorry, I'm reading the other thing. New job description for circulation manager, adult service librarian. Discussion. Scott?
Peg, is this gonna fit into your budget parameters?
Yes, we
or
will
do-
make it work.
Okay. So we won't have to increase, or per se. for this
We'll
new position?
reallocate funds that are there for other purposes. For part-time, it'll go towards full-time instead.
Right.
Any other discussion? Questions? Sandy, you call the roll? Oh, I'm sorry. Are we just going to voice vote this?
If you want. Either
Okay,
way.
ready to voice vote here? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. You'd think after all these years I could decide this on my own. I wouldn't need all this extra help. Okay, next we have, we have approved placement of this new position on the city compensation plan. Peg, you're gonna?
Yes. So when we looked at this position, we recognized that it would be a manager, but a manager of part-time individuals. The teen librarian also manages part-time individuals, is full-time hourly, and we think that's a good fit at a level 9 for our organization.
So, just to, if you care or not, but what we're talking about here with the city compensation plan, we have all the jobs within the city that fall onto this, and she's just adding a line item to put in this position because it is a new position. So this isn't anything new, we're just adding this position into that compensation plan. So when you're looking for someone for that position, you can look at the range and decide what it would cost to hire somebody within that range. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor.
We need a motion.
Second.
Motion by Hackett, second by Keelan, that we approve placement of the new position on city compensation plan. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried.
Thank you, council.
Thanks, Mick. Next, we got our Chief of Police, Chief Brian Ozell, wants to tell us about a new vehicle for next year. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. 2 years ago, our department started ordering squad cars in the fall, and by doing that, we're saving 3 to 5% on our purchase price. And it's hard to believe it's that time of year again. We're just getting our squads. If anybody was at the homecoming parade, you saw one of our new cars leading the parade. They look really sharp. We're going to have the other one ready to go in about a week and a half. So it's hard to believe we're at this time of year. We're already looking at updating for next year for another squad. This year we're going to do things a little bit differently. What I should say is Ewald's been awarded the state contract again for the order of the Ford squad cars. And one of the things we looked at purchasing was a 2019 Ford F-150. It's a four-wheel drive crew cab. And this is going to be about $6,000 more than what it would cost us for the SUVs. The current SUVs that we have are all-wheel drive. They're not four-wheel drive. And last year with the winter that we had with the snowfall, and the snowfall always seems to be a problem for us when we have to respond to complaints due to accidents or maybe other crimes that are going on. And we want to be able to get there safely. And the other reason that we looked at going with a pickup truck was we run into storage issues all the time with the back of the squads, with the equipment that we have in there with our tactical gear, and all the other stuff that we're required to carry. We may have to go get a bicycle, and we just don't have the rooms in the cars anymore to put that stuff in, as well as if we have a burglary or a crime scene that we have to go to, that of bringing evidence back to the police department. So it's also a storage issue. And what this is, it's $6,000 more increase in what the SUV would cost, so it would be approximately $62,000. I did speak with Kathy in regards to the equipment borrow for capital for 2019, and she gave me her blessing in regards to that the money would be there. So I guess I would be asking for approval for a 2019 F-150 responder four-wheel drive crew cab for a 2019 squad car.
Well, and you're not only asking for us to purchase that for $62,000, but you're also asking to purchase it immediately, or order it immediately.
Order it. We will, if we order it now, we will save 3 to 5% by ordering it now. We don't have to pay for it until next year.
So you're, in your motion, you should say that you're approving the purchase of this and also allowing him to order it immediately. most 2019 capital improvement projects, we don't do anything until 2019. But in this case, we would be doing this one early, and we wouldn't have to. So Kathy, remind me again, how, if we order it, do we have to pay for it right
No.
away?
We don't pay for it until delivery.
Okay,
And this
so
year,
there's no big deal here.
it took us till August to get it, so.
All right.
I make a motion, we approve.
Motion by Hackett,
Second?
second by Olson, that we approve of the purchase on our capital improvement plan for next year, 2019, an F-150 responder four-wheel drive crew cab at an approximate cost of $62,000. And that we allow the chief to go ahead and order that truck immediately. Discussion. Sandy, will call the roll?
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Chuck Whitman,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Scott Prochatsky,
Aye.
and Dave Peterson.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, chief. All right, you have license report number 1421, which is just the operator's license. There's two names on there. Again, pending background checks and payments of any fines. We would be looking for approval of this license report.
So moved.
Motion by Hagan,
Second.
second by Keelan, that we approve license report 1421. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. The last is ordinance number 12-18, and this is actually the first reading, and I know Justin is watching football tonight with his son, so John Hart, I hope, can handle this for us.
I went over this with Justin after he had drafted it, coordinated it with the existing ordinance, and it appeared that with the work that's being done around the courthouse, there was only one adjustment that needed to be made on the current
City Hall.
ordinance. Excuse me, City Hall. That the portion of Jefferson Street that is being paved and also that parking lot did require that the ordinance be reworded to reflect what is currently before us, that there be 8-hour parking on both sides of Jefferson Street from East Union to East Fulton, including the parking in the adjacent City Hall Library parking lot, unless signed otherwise. The unless signed otherwise references the fact that there are going to be a couple of spots that are going to be 30-minute parking, especially in front of the bank, and that's going to be signed accordingly. The section of Union Street and East Fulton Street did not need to be amended because they are in what is designated as parking zones, and they were properly worded as far as their part of the current ordinance is concerned to be 2-hour parking. So this is the only amendment we need to that ordinance concerning the new project.
All right, so if you understand, then everything behind City Hall Library would be basically 8-hour parking. On the side streets then would be 2-hour parking, unless it's designated differently, which there's gonna be a couple of 30 minutes over by the bank on the corner of Main and Union Street, and then also on Jefferson and Union Street. So there'll be a couple there. All right, so and this is just a first reading, so I don't think there's is there any urgency to move this forward any faster than what we're doing?
There is not, because the signage isn't going to be up until another month or so, because the street lights aren't going to be installed, and that's where the signage is going to go on the street lights. So
All right, so
next week or whenever.
So at our next meeting, we
Yep.
can go ahead
Yep.
and vote on the second reading.
I have one question. What about the handicapped? Are they going to be affected by this?
Shouldn't be.
Okay.
They follow this.
Right.
They follow the 8-hour in the handicap spot?
Yep. They're just handicapped, same as the 2-hour. They're just a handicap zone, and you can park a handicapped vehicle there, but the time is the same.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Again, just the first reading, so we're not voting on that tonight. Listen, open your ears and listen to what public has to say, and you can bring that back to our next meeting. All right, communications, recommendations of the mayor. I just, again, want to make sure that you write down on your calendar that our first meeting in November will be November 7th instead of November 6th. I do not think that we will be voting on the budget at that meeting. It will probably be at the second meeting in November, which would be the 20th. Okay, so, but there will be discussion on the budget at that meeting. I think that's it. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by, Keeler, that we adjourn till our next regular scheduled meeting, which is Tuesday, October 16th, 2018, subject to call. Now, before I let you vote, don't forget, we have a committee of the whole meeting, so don't get up and walk out, everybody.
Leave you alone.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. We are adjourned at 6:31 PM. You want to do the committee of the whole right away? Does anybody need a break? Go ahead. All right. Let's go into committee of the whole. I'm going to find this on my packet here. All right, I call the committee of the whole meeting to order. It's Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018, and we're beginning this meeting at 6:31. The same, do you need to take roll again, or can we? Same people that are in attendance. I think all members of council are at this meeting. So we would need a motion to approve the agenda. Now, understand that Kathy did give you two handouts that go along with the agenda that you received online. So we need a motion with those attachments.
Move to approve with the attachments.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Chestnut, that we approve of the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting with those two additions that Kathy handed out earlier. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. So this is what we're calling our workshop number 4. It has to do with CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan. The Historical Society has requested that some additional funding that over what they received the year before, and they asked to come in front of City Council to, I guess, tell us why they feel they need the additional money. So we said, sure, come on. So Kathy, you want to add anything to that beforehand?
No, in the past, we've funded the Historical Society at $15,000. The budget also pays for the utilities at the Hutchison House, and that's over and above the $15,000. So the additional funds that we received as a request from the Historical Society used to be funded with the room tax grants, and they have not qualified based on the new parameters that the Convention Bureau has for those funds. So the increase was significant, so I'm asking them to come before council to present that.
All right.
All right.
Tracy,
Thank you, Mayor.
Just introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Tracy Barrett. I am the director at the Waupaca Historical Society, and on behalf of the Historical Society, and Dennis Lear, our president, is here tonight too. So thank you so much for supporting us in the past. We are very, very grateful for the $15,000 we receive every year, and we appreciate that continued support. Like she mentioned, the City of Waupaca allocates funding to the Historical Society each year that goes directly toward expenses that are associated with staff, operations, and our programs, and it's greatly appreciated, so thank you again. For the fiscal year 2019 budget, the Waupaca Historical Society has requested an increase in funding from $15,000 to $22,000. This increase is not only to help offset a loss of funding from the previous hotel motel tax, like she mentioned, but also to allow the Waupaca Historical Society to continue to grow its programs, its involvement in the community and city, and its work to preserve Waupaca's history at its current pace. The Waupaca Historical Society collects and preserves the history of both Waupaca and the Chain of Lakes area. 90% of what we collect and preserve is from the city of Waupaca. As the history of Waupaca and the Chain of Lakes are intertwined, we have made efforts to collect and preserve more of that history from the Chain of Lakes area and the local townships. We have reached out to these townships for funding as well, but have not received a strong response. However, in the end, most of our work is with the City of Waupaca's history and community. In the last 2 years, our attendance at all of our locations has increased. This year alone, 2,300 people visited the depot, 1,300 from Waupaca County, and the rest from Wisconsin, other states, and other countries. The Hutchison House, which is over in South Park, had 370 visitors in 2018, and that doesn't include the school programs we just finished up. And the Holly Center welcomed 677 visitors, along with 11 groups that regularly meet and rent our facility each month. We have greatly increased our fundraising as well. We offer individual and family memberships, which have all remained steady. Our business partner memberships have increased to 21 this year. And we collect donations at all of our buildings and also encourage donations at our free monthly programs. We also continue to hold fund drives and advertise our rental facilities. Last year, we had 58 rentals between our 3 buildings, not including those 11 groups I mentioned that regularly rent out the Holly Center each month. We've also held specific fundraising events, from a paint and sip night to brat fries and a 4th of July food tent this year. We seek out sponsors for each of our monthly programs to offset costs, which are free to the public with free refreshments each month. We are also increasingly active in our community. We receive about 2 research requests per day on average, and often work directly with the city, local businesses, and residents on various aspects of our city's history, and that can mean residential history or business history. As the director of the Waupaca Historical Society, I currently serve on several committees for the downtown project, including the most recent branding and wayfinding committee. I'm also an active member of the steering committee for a new local arts and cultural organization. I serve on the city's plan commission, and I'm on the steering committee for the RISE Network for Active Professionals in Waupaca. We regularly collaborate and work with other local organizations, such as the library, school, churches, and other local businesses. Along with our programs, fundraising, and community involvement, we also have the cost of maintaining those 4 buildings. Tonight, we actually will receive a grant from the Community Foundation, which we're headed to shortly after here, to paint the Hutchison House exterior, which is a much-needed repair. Each building requires yearly upkeep and repairs. We are also working closely with the city and private parties on the possible move of the Mead Bank back here on Jefferson, a historic property. It is entirely possible that this building could become a 5th building for the Historical Society in the future. It is a wonderful opportunity for us to preserve Waupaca's banking and architectural history, but would also utilize more of our funds. We do all of this work with no full-time staff. As the director, I work 15 hours per week, and we also have a seasonal Hutchison House curator who works about 5 hours per week during the summer. For now, we're able to open our buildings additional hours through the work of about 35 dedicated volunteers, in addition to those staff members. Because of our increased use and increased attendance, we do hope to add more hours to the Holly Center in the future, but while it would be a welcome change for us, it is not possible at this time. Our funds also go directly toward physically preserving Waupaca history. In 2018 alone, the number of object donations, so items physically donated to us, from paper to photographs to 3D objects, has doubled, and that's by September. So we are excited that more people know about us, and they know what we do, and they know that we preserve that history, but it does require us to purchase more supplies. And to encourage repeat visitors at all of our sites, we also create changing exhibits. and which involves time, both staff and volunteer, and printing supplies and costs. In the end, the Waupaca Historical Society exists to preserve our history, the city of Waupaca's history, and our area's history. The city of Waupaca has a rich, fascinating, ever-changing history that we truly are passionate about preserving. And as more people realize the work that we do in the community, the more we stretch our time and our resources to teach the people this history and to help them find theirs. With an increase in our funding to the Waupaca Historical Society, we will continue our monthly programming, add more special events, continue maintenance and improvements on our buildings, and keep offering historical and genealogical research to the community and visitors. But this is all truly what we are here for, to continue this interest and passion for our city's history and to use this knowledge as we plan our future. An increase in funds will go directly to preserving our history and also engaging our community and our visitors in this history. The Waupaca Historical Society is not only ready to grow to take on these new challenges, but also excited to see more of Waupaca involved in our future. Thank you again for your ongoing support and for helping us preserve the city's history. It's been a pleasure working with all of you the last 3 years as director, so thank you.
Thanks, Trace. Anybody want to ask Tracy any questions or comments?
I'd like, if I may.
Yeah.
How much is a membership, Tracy, and what does it entitle us to?
Yeah, an individual membership is $15 per year, and a family membership then is, well, a couple membership is $30, and then a family is $50. And that entitles you to get our quarterly newsletter, get invited to special events, which is something we're going to be hopefully adding in the future, so like some behind-the-scenes tours or just some other special events just for members. And then also get firsthand emails and mailings about upcoming events and open hours. And then the rest of that money goes toward supporting the Historical Society's mission.
Thank you.
Dave, go ahead.
How much did the loss of the room tax donation, how much was that you lost?
So the room tax, so before they changed it, and that was 2 years ago, we got about $7,000 every year for the hotel motel tax. And the reason that that's changed for us is that in the past, when we would apply for that, we could use that money directly for operational costs. So that would help us cover those things that most grants do not cover. We have applied to the current version of the hotel motel tax, so through the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Actually, we got a grant last year for advertising, and then we are applying, and hopefully we'll get a grant to put cameras out at the depot, and we'll be the first depot in the Midwest to have these videos, streams that can be seen around the world. So we have applied for the grants, but it is very focused, and thus it just is something where it's not fitting into a typical line item for us. It's actually a special project each time we apply. So.
Okay. Any other? Steve, go ahead.
I was on the board for several years, way back when, and I really like what you people are doing, because I just know how good it is. But one of my pet peeves is that the townships, this includes the township, this isn't just the Waupaca Historical Society, it's the area, and the townships just plain shy away from helping support it 100%.
Yeah, and we have, at the request actually of the city a couple years ago, we did ask all the townships, and one of them donated to us. But like I said, 90% of what we do is the city of Waupaca, and so that includes what we have in the buildings, what we have in our collections, what we do for our programming. And we're obviously trying to expand to the Chain of Lakes. There is no Waupaca County Historical Society. So that makes a difference to us too, that we really do know that if we don't save the history in the townships, there's no other county institution that will. So, so we do try to reach out to those communities and for their support. But like I said, the majority of what we do is the city, and but you know, someone just said to me recently, I thought this was very true, that when people, whether they live in the town of Farmington or the town of Dayton or wherever they live, if you ask them where they live, majority of people will say Waupaca. And I think that's kind of the way we think too, is that what we do is Waupaca, and then everything else is just kind of icing on the cake. We try to collect all that stuff too, but the city of Waupaca is our main focus. So.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy. Process, of course, is we have not put together our general fund budget yet, and so council members, if you remember right, how this works is the staff, Kathy and the staff put together a budget, and then they present that budget to me, and then once it's presented to me, then it would be presented to the council. So if you would like to see this in their budget, either let Kathy know or myself, and we'll look and see if we can figure out a way to get it in there, okay? But, so, no need to tell me tonight or anything like that, but you certainly have the opportunity if you would like to see that. All right?
Thank
So,
you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Bye. All right, let's go back to capital then. Here we have, you want to start with the debt review, so go ahead, Kathy.
And since my presentation's lots of numbers and I'm just giving handouts and nothing up on the screen. So you received two handouts. The one that I wanted to review is it's the 2018-2022 projects by funding source. And there's a figure of $1,550,000. That's the GEO bonds that we borrowed this year and the projects that were assigned to them. So these were all projects that have been approved and have pretty much been spent, if not going to be spent. So you'll see the facilities truck. There was a reallocation to the Danes Hall for Phase 1. Main Street reconstruction, that's the engineering and final design. Evans Street is the engineering. The Berlin Arch Bridge is our share with the county. The City Square reconstruction is the general fund portion. There is additional for the water utility. The fire department apron that our staff did most of the work on. The rec center access control, that was the camera system that was put into the rec center and the security system. Replaced the plow truck and purchase of Habercorn Field and some engineering that's going to be used to determine, help me out, Justin.
Site layout.
Site layout. So of the 1.5 million approximately, everything's been, that we borrowed for has been spoken for. Currently, we have not only this issue with tax levy, we have a 2011 bond and a 2016 state trust fund loan and a 2017 state trust fund loan. So we don't have very many bonds out there that are tax levy. We still have some for the TIF districts that were also refinanced with 2018, and we're working on paying those off. One of the things that I've been trying to recommend to council is to keep the debt service levy at a flat rate. We did reduce it last year by about $176,000. This year, I'm asking that any additional funds that aren't going to be allocated, which is about $120,600, be used to pay off some of the end 2016 state trust fund loan. That has no prepayment penalty. It is at 3.5% interest, but that will fit in because that note, if you look at the little levy projection chart, that note would be paid off approximately a year and a half faster with allocating that down. And that will help when we have the bond that we need to do Main Street will be coming in 2021 and 22 and 23. That will help us to maintain a level debt service levy. So I also provided the projects by funding source, and that's pretty much, I've lumped all of the projects for 19 through 22 in either a state trust fund loan or a one-year note. And a one-year note is for something like the squad cars, something that isn't going to last more than 5 years. So if we did go out and borrow for 10 years, I don't want to have a squad car that we would have only 3 years and still be paying that debt. So I have broken up into a short-term note and a long-term note. And this year, I have a bigger Christmas list from the departments than last year. Last year, I had $1.5 million approximately, and I'm up to $2.1 million. So a lot of this has to do with departments finding that there's issues with equipment and needing to be replaced. Our estimates from last year in the program, in the plan, were off. But most of it is because we're adding some major projects to the plan. I can have each of the departments give a little synopsis of each of their plans. The airport, I'll go over is
Kathy,
just, sure.
can I just ask you a question? I'm sorry. Before you go to the itemized
Yeah.
list here. So looking at 2018, we went with a GO bond of 1.550, and then we also had one-year notes of, is this correct, 423,000?
Correct.
So-
That's going to be the next borrow that I'm going to be bringing to the council. These are all of the small items that during the year, council has approved from the budget. So that we have the land purchase for Midtown Motors in there, and some of the smaller equipment and the 2 squads that council did buy this year. So that additional 423,000 will be coming from with a one-year note from the state trust fund.
So it's a one-year note, but you're looking at making that a longer?
It would
You're
probably.
looking at doing a GO?
I'm not doing a GO on this. This is one of those where I go to the state trust fund. It's a 2-year note. That's the minimum that they have, but they have no prepayment penalty. So I pay it off in a year. So it's like putting it on the credit card and going and paying it off. So at 4%, it's minimal interest cost. But it also qualifies under the levy limits as long-term debt. So we can keep our levy at that 1,134,000 for debt service. So we're still borrowing about $2 million a year for projects.
It's just that next year, we're gonna probably borrow 2.5, and we borrowed 1.5
Right,
this year. But it still averages out to 2 million.
right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Some of the projects that we have, as far as the airport is concerned, we are at the mercy of the Board of Aeronautics. Is whenever they get the money available is when they will slot one of our projects in. So I've put, talking to Beth, I've put in the reconstruction estimate for our share of runway 1331 for next year to be started. And then in 2020 would be the balance of what our project is, if that's one of the projects that the state would put in. Otherwise, my guess is good as any as to whether or not in that plan we get any of that funding. The cemetery doesn't have anything until 2021. It's a replacement of a tractor. In City Hall has several items, but not until 2020. And,
Well, you do have the phone system.
but we have the phone system in the equipment part.
Oh, okay.
So, community development, the Memorial Park development, and a possible Phase 2 of the Danes Hall. We are looking at $10,000 of our share for this year to do the site planning. We have engineering costs for Main Street, another phase, final phase of the design and engineering. And again, we're still looking at 2021 for Main Street coming in at almost $2 million. Granite Street is scheduled for 2020. Evans Street's been engineered, and we are looking at construction next year. That's one of the ones that we're looking at about $765,000 for Evans Street. Starting the design on the downtown alley reconstruction, $40,000, and then in 2020 would be about $300,000. Most of that work is stormwater. Justin?
For the alleyways you're talking?
Yeah.
For the design work, yeah, it's gonna be trying to figure out where the water should go.
We've added $25,000 for seal coating on Apple Tree Lane and Farm Drive for next year. That was just reallocating some of the dollars that we had out there on Evans. Lakeman Field Facilities to replace the concession stand area was $180,000. The Lakeman Field light poles, $175,000, and that includes the utilization of the light poles from Habercorn. Riverside Park Restoration Project is $10,000 for next year. And that one, Andrew has slided because of the work that we're going to get from the DNR, correct? And then Street Department is to replace this snow blower for $160,000, a one-ton dump truck for $60,000, and an additional $165,000 towards the Public Works garage to start up the salt shed.
That's correct.
At that site, and also do some additional site plans on going forward. The smaller one is the one-year note. We're looking at the phone system upgrade. This one, Josh has got at $55,000. We are currently going out for RFPs on that, so that dollar amount may change. We also are looking at wiring City Hall, and that'll be $12,000 by utilizing just for the materials, but we would be utilizing staff for that. We have an annual computer replacement of $10,000, and I'm hoping that by 2022 that we won't be borrowing for that annual computer replacement, and that we would have operating levy available to bring that back into the general fund budget. The Serenity Park Boardwalk and Accessible Trail was originally scheduled for this year, and that we've moved it on to 19 because of scheduling with the Wisconsin Corps. The squad car is what you just approved tonight, the $62,000 for the truck for the police department. The street department and community development is looking at purchasing, along with the water and sewer utility, GPS rover unit to assist with GPS mapping. Is that correct? And we have a bus for the transit program where we pay only $12,000 towards that $50,000 bus for, I believe, King is a replacement. So those are the projects that we have slated for borrowing for next year. And right now, based on what I've received from the financial advisors, I can make the debt service levy work at $1,034,000 with no increase in the levy. But that's because we've been prepaying by keeping our levy flat and taking any extra levy that we have and prepaying any of our outstanding debt. This is what's making this plan work and being able to afford the requests of the departments and keep everything moving. Please don't ask me to cut the levy. Because I think that it's going to make a whole difference when we get into 2021 with Main Street. We still need to do some. If you can see that the requests for one-year equipment notes in 2021 are very minimal because of the Main Street borrowing. Going forward, again, we're trying to slate the Public Works garage for 2023 or 24. On that's based on the fact that you will have almost all of the TIF districts closed by the time that Public Works garage debt would come on the levy. As long as this Christmas list doesn't keep growing.
Well, I'm a little bit confused when you got, I want to make sure I understand this. Now, again, let me ask you, the one-year note that we had for $423,647, that becomes part of our debt for 2019.
Correct.
And
But I don't need to pay for it if I didn't need to. I could, the first payment from the state trust fund loan isn't going to be until 2020. Because it is a 2-year note, and they don't make us pay that first year because we borrow it in fall. So there is no payment due to the state in 19. So we would pay it in 2020.
That $423,000.
$423,000.
The first payment.
For the first payment, and it would be all paid off.
So you're, okay.
It's a 1-year note, but because of the payment schedule, I don't pay for it until 2 years later, because we don't borrow for it until the end of the year. They only have, the state trust fund loan only has a one-time payment, and it's in March. So if you borrow in fall, you don't pay for it next year, you pay for the following year.
So the 420, let me understand this again, so I understand. The 423,000, whatever, we're gonna pay for that in 2020, and we're gonna pay the full amount.
Correct.
So that's gonna go towards our debt payment in 2020.
20.
Okay. Now, for 2019, if we stay with the numbers they have, we would borrow $2,186,000
$2,186,000
in the state trust fund?
It depends. Right now, talking to Baird, we could probably do better again out in the market. And the state trust fund loan is almost up to 4%. Baird is looking at the possibility that we would get somewhere around 3%. So we would save a whole percent on that. So you're talking about maybe $200,000.
Okay, now you said something about a number of $1,134,000.
$1,134,000 is what we will levy for debt service on the tax bills. That is our debt service levy. That amount is what we, our tax levy, that's what is segregated out for debt service under the
In payments.
in payment. We will be paying 1.134 in debt service.
Okay, and that includes this, a payment for this, or this isn't gonna happen until?
This isn't going to happen under this levy. What we will be paying is $85,000 for the 2000, principal on the 2011 note, $88,000 on the 2016 note, $290,000 on the and there's about 179,000 in interest. So really it comes up to, the levy, if we didn't do any prepayment, would be reduced to $1,013,000. But then when we borrow for all these other projects, then I would have to raise the levy to cover debt service the following year. So instead of making the debt service levy go up and down by keeping it level at $1,134,000 like it was last year, I'm going to request that council take the $120,000 that of excess levy and prepay on the 2016 note. So that's where I'm looking at for debt service.
So your graph that you have on that next page, are you trying to show us how that
I'm
feathers
showing,
in?
right, I'm showing you that the debt service levy is flat, and this is what makes up that debt service levy, is the debt service for each of those borrowing. And if you can see our current outstanding debt, I'm looking at having paid off by 2021.
And that's assuming that we borrow, because this goes through
This goes through just 2023.
2023, so this would include all of these totals from payments for 19, 20, 21, and 22?
Right, so if you look at the last page of that packet, it shows you that our current outstanding debt, which is the 2010, 11, and 16 debt, amounts to pretty much what our $1,134,000 this year paid for. And then in 19, we only owe $190,000 on that outstanding debt, $317,000 on our 2017 debt, and $506,000 on our refinancing and new money debt. And that's where I'm using that $120,000 to pay off the 2021 of the current outstanding debt. That's why there's a zero or a dash under 2021. And that's to leave the levy the same. And then I put in what the equalized tax rate is for our debt service based on our equalized value, and what the cost on a $100,000 home, equalized value of a home, what their portion of their tax bill is for debt service for the year to cover that debt. So on a $100,000 home, of their tax bill, $266 is what is paid for debt service levy. And that's for putting in the roads and all that, all the equipment.
Okay.
It's a lot of numbers. Anybody wants more detail, information, I'm more than happy to sit down and make it even simpler if that's the case, and explain where it is and what I'm looking at going forward. But one of the things is that to plan where our debt service is going to be and to be able to afford all of this demands that we have for capital. As, the TIF debt hasn't changed since we reviewed the TIF districts. They're in really good shape. There will be no, as you can see from my explanation, there will be no general fund tax levy transferred to cover TIF debt. All of the TIFs are incrementing enough that they can pay the current debt service that's out there. So I'm happy with that. Again, I reviewed, I went over all of the projects that are out there, and I've been looking at these projects and seeing if there's something that can be moved. But a lot of it has to do with Main Street, the fact that we're doing the alleys and granite in conjunction with Main Street. So that's driving a lot of projects going forward.
So Kathy, you're pretty confident with all this big borrow we'll have to have in 2021, and that you can still keep this debt levy service level like you say here?
Yep.
That's a lot of years. I mean, it's very good that we can do that.
And that's because we can, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm looking at structuring the debt. And I'm not going out 20 years like you've done in the past. I mean, I'm looking at that, we're probably looking at anywhere from 5 to 8 year debt. But because we have very good interest rates with our rating and being able to go to the open market, I think that's driving a lot of it, the savings. And I'm hoping that going forward to, you know, if there's that opportunity to prepay some debt, that, you know, we take advantage of it, only because that helps us going forward.
I agree.
Well, I got to tell you, this is the first time I've seen it too, so I would like to dig into it and find out what these requests are and what they're for. So I don't want to spend hours here, but I certainly want to make sure that I get an opportunity to talk to the department head so I understand what these projects are. You keep saying a Christmas list, and then, but you're still recommending that we borrow that
I'm
whole
still
amount.
recommending,
Well,
because everybody has justified in their justification, and I've asked them, can we push any of this stuff off? But I also will be putting together, I just was able to get everybody to stop changing numbers on me and put everything together in a book in detail, what they have in the Planet software, so that you can look at it, and I'll have that out to you by the end of the week.
is there any contingency in here? Like, we had some contingency this year, we ended up using that, of course, to buy the Midtown Motors property, but is there anything in there? I mean, I'm just looking at, for example, one project you have in there, it's gonna cost $250,000. That doesn't even count getting the building, or getting rid of the building and
Nope.
you know, so I mean, is this even an accurate number, quite honestly?
It-
So I need to dig into that a little deeper and understand where we're going there. Unless you guys want to go through these on an individual item tonight, I would feel more comfortable if I knew what they were first, so that I can help explain it too, but it's up to you. I mean, this was just for FYI purposes only for
That's
tonight.
pretty much what it is.
Yeah. But any specific questions you want to have, or?
I would ask you, Mayor, then if you go over it, will you be the one to say, hey, Department so-and-so, we need to cut, or is it our job, or how's?
Ultimately,
Or is
it's
it up to
your,
Kathy to say if she can fit it in?
No.
I guess,
well, ultimately, it's your decision, Scott, as the council. I might recommend some things
Yeah.
before you guys see it.
okay.
But, and that's what I've done in the past with the whole budget, is made recommendations. They can either listen to me or not, but they normally do, but,
So we'll see the final kind of numbers, or not final, but
yeah,
a recommended number, and then we can
yeah, absolutely,
want to make changes.
absolutely. I mean, I envision us having a workshop on the discussion of the budget itself.
Correct. I'm looking at having another discussion, another committee of the whole to go over, once we have more numbers from the state and can pinpoint more stuff down, and all the departments have all their information into me. I think that's putting the whole package together and having it so that when we go out to publication, which will be at the end of this month, before that time, the mayor and I have sat down and with the departments and gone over what their requests are, and to put it out to everybody so that they can see what everything's entailed.
Okay?
Kathy, do you have an idea of when that next training or committee of the whole would be?
I would make it the first meeting in November, so it would be
the 7th.
So it would be before you would have even at the public hearing notice. So you would have one more look at everything before we get to the public hearing on the 20th of November. I think that would give everybody a lot more information so that they can make a better decision on the 20th.
And we should be able to, right, be able to put everything together then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the general fund and the capital fund.
Right, we have we've given you a lot of disjointed pieces. We've given you the TIF districts, we've given you the personnel, we've given you the taxi, we've given you now the debt service and the capital requests, and now I have to put it all together and give it to the mayor to review and the departments and see where we are as far as requests. You know, $7,000 more from the Historical Society. Can we afford it? Well, I can't tell you that right now.
Okay.
We be talking the next meeting in October about any budget-wise, or are we going to wait till November then?
If I get the numbers from the state, I might make a report on it, and maybe give some summary information, but it's going to be to sit down with the mayor, definitely, and go over the numbers.
We're trying to stick to your timeline where you wanted to do it all within a council meeting, you know, so that we didn't have to have a special meeting. And hopefully we can continue that, but that is an option if we have to in November to have a special meeting. But we're hoping not to. So, like Kathy said, as much information as we can get you before November 7th would be great, and then especially before the public hearing. So ultimately, if you can make a decision on November 7th, that would make it so that we wouldn't have to have a special meeting. Okay? Anything else? Any questions specifically? Okay. We'd be looking for a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Keelan, that we adjourn our committee of the whole meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. We're adjourned at 7:18 PM. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Be safe. Drive safe.